Hi everybody, my name is Thomas and I'm the Director of Product Strategy at Lansweeper, and today is the second video that I'm creating about the topic of CAASM, or Cyber Asset Attack Surface Management. If you didn't see the video that I posted about a week or two back, please go and watch it. In that video I talk about what CAASM is and the benefits that CAASM is able to provide an organization, and I touched a little bit upon what we're focusing on when it comes to CAASM, which is essentially the IT story, enabling IT people to collaborate with cybersecurity teams and helping to bridge the gap between IT and cyber. Today, I'm going to elaborate a bit more on that, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Lansweeper's capabilities as well. So, if we start first with the core capability that CAASM provides, which is asset discovery. Now, I think it's fair to say that Lansweeper, for the last 20 years, has focused heavily on this. Like, this is our business: asset discovery, asset inventory, asset management. We've been focused on ensuring that all devices and all technology assets are available and known within your company's estate. And we do that across IT, OT, IoT, cloud, and we do it both actively and passively to ensure that we get the best coverage possible. But what we don't do is just say, hey, we've discovered this asset, there you go. But we go deeper. Some people in the company like to say we go to the bare metal or the bare virtual metal. What they mean is that once we discover an asset, it's not just there you go, but we then gather a wealth of information from that asset in function of you then knowing exactly what's happening within your environment. So, it may be the case that we're pulling information such as the devices that are connected to it at the point in which we've scanned it, or it may be the connections to and from that asset so that you can then utilize some of the diagramming capability that we have. Or it could be the case that you want particular serial numbers so that you can then reconcile that against Excel spreadsheets that you're managing different assets from. But in general, what we're doing is gathering so much information so that you're then able to really understand what is going across the environment. And for CAASM, that's really important. And everybody in cybersecurity says this, but you can't protect what you don't know about. And that's really true. And Lansweeper's core aim is to ensure that you have that baseline of understanding of your environment. But once you have that, the CAASM story then continues, and we start to move into risk. And the first thing is risk identification. And here we do three things. The first is end of life and end of support. We are able to tell you when particular things in your environment are now no longer supported. And in most cases, when things are no longer supported, it means that there are also no longer security updates available for those things. And that there is an inherent risk that you need to know about and you need to deal with or accept. The next piece is then another core element of Lansweeper, which is our reporting capability. What good is it, us just gathering this wealth of information, if we don't provide you with the capabilities to then interrogate that information? It's really important that that's there. And there are two things that come to mind when we think about security and our reporting capability. The first is Patch Tuesdays. Every single month, a bunch of IT teams are running around looking at Microsoft's latest problems that need to be resolved. Lansweeper is able to, with the push of a button, report and provide you with the areas of your environment that you need to focus on in function of dealing with the Patch Tuesday notifications that Microsoft have just released. The second bit that reporting is really good for is, I guess, what we would call the celebrity vulnerabilities. And for those customers who have been with us since 2017, you may remember the WannaCry incident. I certainly do. And what we did during that time was we very quickly created a report that enabled our customers to see where they potentially may need to go off and fix something, because maybe the vulnerability that allowed the propagation for the WannaCry malware is available for them there. And that is something that we've continued to do. Now, the third piece of the puzzle when it comes to risk identification is risk insights, which arguably is an evolution of that reporting capability. And what we do in risk insights is we provide vulnerability correlation. And I say vulnerability correlation very specifically because what we're not doing is actively probing each of your assets regularly to determine whether or not vulnerabilities are available. The reason we do it this way, in the correlation way, is because we want to make sure that we provide you with the potential risks that you have without causing any additional network traffic, which is really important for OT environments, and without any concerns that anything is going to break when we run a scan against a vulnerability scan against one of your assets. We want to make sure that everything operates as you expect it, but you also get the vulnerability information that potentially is then impacting your environment, because that is very important. Now, the way that we do this is when we gather all of that wealth of information on the assets, we're also gathering software information. And we use that to then correlate against the information that we get from a partner called VulnCheck, who have their own database and their own teams curating a database of vulnerabilities, known vulnerabilities. We resolve this data together, and there we're able to then say, you potentially have these problems across all of these assets. That's really powerful, because not only is it done in such a way that it isn't going to affect the running of your environment, but it's also done in such a way that's incredibly fast, because we've already got the data of the assets, we've already got the data of the vulnerabilities. All that we need to do at that point is bring this data together at the point in which you've last scanned. So you now have your assets, you now have an understanding of the risks that are imposed across those assets. Now what we need to help you with is prioritization. And the way that we do this is in two ways. First, carrying on with the vulnerability conversation, utilizing the data that we get from VulnCheck. We have a whole wealth of information about these vulnerabilities, whether they're exploitable, whether they're being actively exploited by threat actors, whether there are particular threat actors using these particular vulnerabilities against particular industries for ransomware campaigns. There is a whole lot of information that we have, and continuously over the next months, we're going to be adding more and more data from this database into Lansweeper, so that you can then start to prioritize vulnerabilities based upon the risk that you perceive that it has within your environment. But that then begs the question, what about this asset information? Well, we have such an intrinsic knowledge now of the assets within your environment, because you're utilizing Lansweeper to discover them, that it would be a shame if you didn't use this in function of prioritizing. Because the reality is, and if you take this example, you have one vulnerability and it spans across every asset in your environment. Not every organization in the world is able to just say, press a button and fix all those vulnerabilities in one fell swoop. The reality is that you have particular areas of the environment that are more important. And Lansweeper is able to, with the data that it provides, give you an understanding of what is important. Maybe it's a HR kind of platform over here that's dealing with payroll, or maybe it's a set of assets over here that are responsible for serving something to your customers. Whatever it may be, the data that Lansweeper provides is there to enable you to make decisions on what is the most critical thing in your environment. And when you have an understanding of criticality, and then you have an understanding of the likelihood of vulnerabilities potentially being used and the vulnerability risk itself, you then have the ability to bring it together and say, this asset and this vulnerability is the most important thing right now. And when you then overlay across the top of it the end of life information and the Patch Tuesday information we get from the reporting capability we have, you then have a very holistic view of your risk as a whole in a prioritized manner. Now, the reason that this works as well as it does is because, and when I say it works, I'm talking about CAASM. The reason it works so well is because for many years, security products, let's say, have been focused on being this kind of single thing. They want to do everything. But the reason why CAASM is so different is actually CAASM is focused not only on doing things well itself, but ensuring that all of the data that gets collected, whether it be about the vulnerabilities or the assets, is then used everywhere else. That it extends all of the use cases across your environment and within your business. So with integrations both in and out, you can utilize this data to basically improve and uphold your security posture throughout your organization. Maybe your cybersecurity team are utilizing different products for certain things. Well, you can provide them the data that comes from this CAASM solution in Lansweeper, so that they have all of the information about the assets for when they perform their activities utilizing their tools. And that really, for us, is a really key point when it comes to CAASM. It's about ensuring that the bridge between teams is fulfilled. And all people within an organization are responsible for upholding cybersecurity. But the two teams that we interact with the most are both IT and cyber. And what we did over the last year is we plotted essentially all of the activities that IT teams and cybersecurity teams are doing in function of cybersecurity to basically determine what it is that where the overlap is. Where is it that IT and cybersecurity meet? And we found two things. We found prioritization, and that's why we're spending a lot of time and effort in bringing in additional data from our partners so that you can prioritize your vulnerabilities better. But then the second piece of the puzzle was the mitigation or the dealing with the risk once it has been identified. Because typically what will happen is risk will be identified, maybe from the cyber team, and then it'll be on the IT team to basically take that information and deal with it, to do something about it. And that for us is a key area in which cybersecurity and IT sometimes don't meet in the middle as well as they should. And it's an area that we're looking to focus on. Right now, we're providing a bunch of information around the patches that are potentially available for particular risks. We're providing external links, but we're doing a lot more work there in the future. I would like to thank you for your time across these two videos. I hope it's been useful. If you are at all interested in hearing more about our capabilities or would like to have a conversation about Lansweeper, you can go to our website, lansweeper.com, and run a free trial. You can get in touch with our team and they will give you a demo. And if you want a larger conversation about how Lansweeper is able to be used in function of upholding and improving cybersecurity in your business, do please get in touch. Thanks very much for your time.